Ladies and gentlemen of the internet, my name is Demigod Shmurda here, and welcome back to another video, and welcome back to another episode of Arrowverse Analysis. I think I've finally found the reason that Season 1 Oliver and Season 5 Oliver are so different, and it's all in the way that the seasons and writers see Oliver as a character. In Season 1, the writers saw Oliver as someone who killed, not someone who murdered, or who killed because he liked it. We never, not even in the Season 5 flashbacks, see Oliver crack a smile knowing he killed someone, or even pretending to justify his actions. Hell, after rewatching the flashback scenes of Season 5's What We Leave Behind, I agree with Oliver's reason for killing Justin Claiborne. He's a scummy human being that clearly doesn't regret weaponizing tuberculosis, yes, that is a real thing, and deserves to get put down. Simple as that. However, Season 1 puts emphasis on the fact that Oliver actively chooses to save people. Season 5 does not do this, ever. There is no line like this.
It's not about you and me, detective. It's about saving a life.
No attempt from Oliver to save any of the people he goes after like he did for Derek Reston and Legacies. No implications that Oliver is trying to save the lives of bad people for no other reason than because they're still people. Season 5 does not portray Oliver in any sense of positive light, and it actively avoids talking about saving and protecting people as the top priority. Season 5 does not see Oliver as someone who tries to save people, but as someone who tries to stop people. Season 1 shows us multiple instances of Oliver trying to save people, be it in Lone Gunman, where he goes after Deadshot to protect people at the stock auction, Vendetta, where he saves Frank Bertinelli from both China White and the Huntress, Dead to Rights, where Oliver tries to stop the assassination before he finds out that it's Tommy's father, Salvation, where he actively tries to save bad people, one of which is on the list, for no other reason than because they're still people, and Unfinished Business, where he makes a vertigo antidote to try to help that druggie despite him being a danger to those around him. Notice that I chose no examples of Oliver saving someone that his family, Laurel, or Diggle convinced him to save, by the way. Season 5 does not put focus on Oliver saving people, and this is the major driving force that prevents Season 1 and Season 5 from having good verisimilitude. And there is no episode that shows that better than this one. If this is your first episode and you're wondering how my rating system works, there's a detailed description down below, along with a link to all my other episodes of Overanalysis, but I encourage you to watch this one first. I'm sure you'll still enjoy it. As of this video going up, it was actually Arrow's 10th anniversary just 2 days ago. So what a better way to celebrate than by shitting on what's generally considered to be the best season of the show, that being Season 5. But seriously, thank you so much to the entire Arrow team for making this great show, and I'm glad that this episode was the one that I got to review so close to the anniversary. And yes, I do realize I'm saying this without owning a single Arrow t-shirt. Fuck me, but anyway, let's get back into the overanalysis. Nick Kopus returns to direct Arrow's 18th episode, Salvation, which first aired on March 27th, 2013. A vigilante calling himself the Savior starts kidnapping and killing people who've negatively impacted the Glades, so Oliver goes after him for his lack of restraint. Meanwhile, Laurel takes matters into her own hands in an attempt to set her parents straight. I also hope you like the Rogers the Musical poster. That was the third one that I got, and it's staying up there. Unlike possibly the She-Hulk one. I've heard that show is like hot ass. I don't know, anything with Jamila Jamil in it surely can't be that bad. I haven't seen it yet.
John Nickel is one of the wealthiest real estate developers in Sterling City. That building that burnt down last night, the wiring was not up to code.
Maybe you didn't know that.
I guess he also didn't know about the 7 people who've frozen to death in his other buildings over the past 3 years.
Yeah, he's a real man of the people.
Police can't do anything because all these slums are in the Glades. So tonight, Felicity, we cross Mr. Nickel's name off the list. You okay with that?
100%.
Look at that. Felicity's on board. Oh yeah, the symbol is on the inside of the journal. That's the first time we see it in Oliver's version of the list. Someone else was here.
You went over there to be all grr, stop being bad, or I'll arrow you, and now you want to rescue him.
I don't like the idea that somebody dangerous is out there. Somebody else. Because typically, they don't show my level of restraint.
Why don't you go home to be with your family, man?
It's when the work is done, Dickel.
Okay, then I'll take you out to dinner.
I'm not hungry.
I'm not asking.
I can get you a boat. But I need time.
Just get us the damn boat.
Why do you have a gun?
Look, it's just a liquor store. It'll make you feel any better. I won't be armed. I owe people.
You're just a waste.
Let me make sure you get home okay.
Don't bother.
See, look at that. He's come a long way already. He's like, let me help, you know?
Sarah had that same cap, the Starling City Rockets. Your dad bought it for her, remember?
Yeah, I remember.
I get the things didn't end well with Helena, with McKenna, with Laurel.
Sarah, the life that I'm leading for myself right now doesn't leave much room for an actual life.
You've been home for 8 months, Oliver, but I don't think you left that island yet.
I'm watching Stargirl season 3 right now, and we're 4 episodes in, and we're like half a week into like the timeline of that season when we've been going for like 4 weeks. And this season's been a much big improvement over last season where like it was a slow season, but it felt slow. This season doesn't necessarily feel like that. It still only so far has taken maybe like 3 to 4 days over the course of like a season, and it's still happening in 2021, so like a year ago. But this season of Arrow that we're watching, we're 18 episodes in, and we are 8 months into the season. We are 8 months into the year. I really like when shows, especially the Arrowverse shows, used to do that, where like their big seasons would take up a long period of time. That's what made these like 23 episode seasons go by like that. We were going in time along with the episodes instead of like we're still like a year in the past in the case of like Stargirl season 3. I'm also watching Punisher right now. It's the same way. We're like 6 episodes in and we've gone through like a week of story.
This came up on every screen with an IP address originating from the Glades.
John Nickel. He owns your tenements, manages your slums. He makes money off of our suffering. I want to give you the chance to state your case.
Without me, people like that would end up on the street.
People like you. That's all we are to guys like this. I find you guilty.
I was on IMDb earlier, and I wanted to make sure like what episodes I was watching, and I saw that this was this episode, and I was like, oh shit, I reacted so much bigger then than I did now. But no, I'm excited to get into this episode. This is a good one.
NSA believes he's a former resident of the Glades.
Former?
Yeah, well, a year ago, he hacked himself right off the radar.
So what happened a year ago?
We're back. Now, DAs are supposed to go after bad guys, but this one can't even be bothered to bring them to trial. Like the ones who killed my wife in a bodega.
Felicity?
I'm on it.
Emma Falk. Grieving husband is Joseph Falk. What do we have on him?
Not much. 42, former city worker, Department of Transportation, computer technician, left.
I like that you can still hear his thing in the background.
I'm gonna give you 10 minutes to deliver the closing argument of your life.
The visuals this episode are pretty freaking great.
No, he came to me, which means he doesn't know that we're responsible for the attempt on his life.
I'm sending Amanda to London for a few weeks, just as a precaution.
I thought his daughter was dead. I had to re-edit that video many times, and I had to rewatch that episode many times. Moira specifically says, what would Amanda want you to do? I thought it was implicit enough that his daughter was dead. So that's just like, it's a weird inconsistency.
There's nothing I wouldn't do to protect my children, Frank.
That's very Moira. And if you know what Moira does at the end of this episode, ho-ho!
I'm sort of dating this guy who could definitely be described as a bad boy. And I figured as someone who's dated like a gajillion of them.
I haven't dated a gajillion.
Ah!
All right, guilty as charged.
That's, I think, did they not talk about that in, like... No, they talked about that in Betrayal. Okay, you know what? Reinforcing that, sure. I wasn't 100% on it. Now I'm like 80% of the way there to believe that. Okay.
The Chinese embassy is online too.
I'm trying to track down the woman in the photo that I emailed you.
He's working off an IPX located at 23rd and Myra.
You gonna hood up?
It's the middle of the day!
You could still hood up.
You see anything?
I'm only on the first floor. Is this the right place?
He moved just north of you, Ocean and Grant.
On my way!
Notice he has to stop for a second and he can't keep going. Oliver's peak human, but he knows his limits. And that's gotta hurt. I also like that Oliver's trying to save horrible people because they're people. That's convenient. But no, they're people. They're still human beings. He's still trying to save lives.
I'm at Ocean and Grand Felicity, that's just a vacant lot. Find the right address now!
Oliver's over. Callahan is dead.
I was the one who was supposed to find Carnahan, and I was the one who sent you to that bogus location. I've never seen anybody die.
Small inconsistency. Maybe she wasn't watching the video feed from the one that she sent Oliver, but never seen anyone die. Now she's seen 2 people die within a span of like however long. Is a little technicality on the wording.
Maybe it is better being alone. I'm not seeing anyone currently, but if I were, I don't know how I'd tell him about today.
I really like that, and it also goes to explain why the people that are in the know about the superhero teams in, like, the later seasons are the ones that are in the know. You can't have stuff like this happen. You don't know how you would be able to tell other people about that. Or even if they were, like, in the know about, like, what you do, you don't know how you tell them, hey, I watched someone die today when I could have done, like, when I failed to stop that from happening. That's hard. I complained about all of the new characters being introduced on later seasons getting in, like, being on the team and not being, like, side characters apart from the team. This is a good way to sort of, like, explain why that would be.
Get us to the boat, and then we'll tell you where it is.
And of course, you'll be honest about its location.
Well, I wouldn't be. But this one's got some strange hang-up about principles.
Oh, Shadow!
You will deliver back to me the circuit board, or I will kill Yao Fei's daughter.
That's why he wouldn't leave.
The photo of the girl. I found her. Jen, these are my parents.
Is that you in the picture?
Yeah. I spent 6 months on an island off the coast of China that was taken in a small fishing village named Qingjiu. It's Mandarin for
salvation.
Roll credits. Calling back to that shot from the top of the episode, but now it's Thea going back and Roy heading out.
Roy Harper?
Yeah.
Oh, shit! Oh, and his gun's not loaded because he was trying to be good for Thea.
Meet Roy Harper. Another gangbanger in the Glades, running free, like the ones who killed my wife.
You know him?
Roy, he's my friend. We were in a fight and some guy came out of nowhere and just attacked us. He doesn't deserve to die.
I promise you, he's gonna be okay. You stay here with Tommy, all right?
I've learned a high-ranking member of the Triad was just arrested.
Well, I should have a word with him.
I already have.
I love that little stumble that she does. I would do anything to protect my kids, Moira said at the top of the episode.
How did she know Sarah had her hat with her when she went on the boat?
I came home early that day. I saw her put the hat in a bag. I told her not to do this, not to you, Laurel. But she said she was in love and she had to follow her heart even if nobody else thought it was right. Just like I told her I once did. I killed my daughter. I killed her.
And I am going to pause right here because this kind of relates to what Thea's kind of feeling right now. She must feel really responsible for what's going on with Roy right now. Plus, it relates back to how Quentin was feeling in the first couple episodes in the season. He could have done more. Him and Sarah could have spent more time together. He could have kept her from going on that boat. Here, Dinah literally could have, so she does feel responsible. Oliver also kind of, like, especially on the island, definitely felt responsible for her. He feels very responsible for what happens to Shadow in season 2. This is really good. This is really good because it relates so many elements into this episode. I always liked this episode. And now that I know this episode was this episode, it got me more excited to watch this episode. And now I'm, like, now the gears are turning in my head to make me realize why I liked this episode so much.
I've been going through all the video we got, trying to see if there's anything that'll tell us where this guy is, and I got nothing except sound.
Sounds like a car driving over lane markers.
It has to be bigger than a car.
Felicity, show me a map. Sites of the abductions and where we've seen the signal so far. Those are all subway stops.
Starling City doesn't have a subway.
No, but they used to. When I was a kid, my dad used to take me down to the Rockets game. By subway.
To the Rockets, like the hat.
He was at 23rd and Myra, but he was underground. He used to work for the Department of Transportation, so that's why he knows all the old subway stops. That's why I couldn't trace the signal. He was moving. He was in a subway car.
Where is he now?
He's on the old crosstown line. If he continues on this route, he'll be at the Spring Street stop in 15 minutes.
Oh! Oh!
Well, that was unexpected.
Oh, that expression that she did. Kind of foreshadowing a little bit what happens next season.
No! I won't slow you down. Go!
There we go. That's a trick arrow that works. That was a cool landing, too. Oh, the visuals in this episode are very good. I mean, that fight was kind of just okay. Oh, look at that shot! And I love the amateur video-ish feel of it. It's very Pattinson Batman-esque, but there's still a lot of, like, action and intrigue going on, and it's not so painfully slow like that movie was.
Why do you get to live?
I shouldn't.
You really don't care if you live or die?
No one's gonna miss me.
Aw.
I'm just a waste.
Well, then we agree on something.
I'm assuming that earpiece is what mods his voice.
If you kill this kid, he'll never get an opportunity to change. You can give him a second chance.
Emma never got a second chance. You have no idea how lonely it is.
I understand being alone. But it doesn't give you the right to kill people in cold blood.
It's just like the gangbangers who gunned her down. He's no different than them. And now I get to gun him down.
Don't do it!
I actually feel bad for this guy. And right there, see, his heart was in the right place. We don't get to see him for very long, but what we do get out of him is really good character work.
Red eye to Central City.
Ah, they did! Whoa! They were not setting up Flash for this long. They only started setting it up like a few episodes before Barry Allen showed up in season 2. But that's a name drop. I don't think that they couldn't have been setting Flash up this early. That was just a name drop. Like anytime you hear Coast City, you think of Green Lantern, or when we see St. Walker's Hospital. It's just like an Easter egg sort of thing. They weren't specifically setting up Central City. It just so happens that 2 years after this season, that The Flash does actually become a show on the CW. So it's like, stuff like that is cool.
Should be home in a flash.
Oh, fuck you, writers!
Call me sometime. I'd really like that.
Aww.
You would?
Of course I would.
Yeah, you're her mom.
You're my mother.
Hey, look at that! I'm really about to give this episode a perfect score, aren't I? Kiss him!
I thought you were gonna die.
That makes two of us.
Aww!
My mom, she had this crazy idea that Sarah was still alive.
Notice his reaction! Notice his reaction to that! Because he knows she is! This might have been the episode where they were like, okay, maybe we're gonna bring Sarah back for season 2, just because of his reaction alone. Although that could just be a genuine shock and that they haven't figured that out yet necessarily, but it definitely points in the direction of that. I don't know, tinfoil hat theory.
We're gonna have a dinner.
Why?
Why?
I don't want to be on an island anymore.
Calling back to what Dig said at the top of the episode. I don't know how much of this scene I'm going to be able to put in because of the copyrighted music in the background, but I want to include some of it, okay?
Circuit board's gone.
Fire's played us. While he was screwing us around, his men were combing the woods for it.
Neither one of us have any idea what his plans are.
I do.
This is not how I remember Shadow joining the team, but I'm good with it.
Malcolm knows.
What?
I had no choice but to turn over what I discovered. The evidence of the wire transfers, the money that you paid the Triad to assassinate him.
The money
I would do anything to protect my kids, she said at the top of the episode.
Now Chen's family will share his fate.
Chen betrayed us, but his daughter didn't. Tell Mr. Merlin I want her to live. Amanda nearly lost her life in the Glades. Now she's lost her father. I think she's suffered enough.
Nearly. Fuck what I said at the top of the episode. And there's blood on her hands. Very simple symbolism, but... Damn, I'm really about to give this episode a perfect score! The out damn spot, the blood on the hands, it's such a simple symbolism, but it's so great. Would you really do anything to protect your kids, Moira?
By the way, if you ever need to tell someone about your day, you can tell me.
I'm really... Yep, it's happening.
It's an old map of the decommissioned subway line. Runs underneath the low-rent district of the city.
I've seen that map before. It was right in front of our faces the entire time. My father, the other Archer, the Undertaking, whatever the plan is. It's all connected to the Glades.
I have always liked this episode, but I don't think I ever realized how much or why until this viewing. I'm giving the episode's plot a 5. This is one of the episodes that you can easily tell had a lot of care put into it. It's very similar to The Odyssey in that way. The episode is simultaneously part of a larger whole and a self-contained story from beginning to end. And not only is it hard to do that, but it's a shame we don't get episodes like this anymore. The closest thing I can think of is Summer School in Chapter 11 in Stargirl Season 2, or A Brief Reminiscence in Superman and Lois Season 1. Maybe we throw Previously On from WandaVision on that pile for a Marvel example. It's hard to do episodes that are self-contained stories without them feeling like filler, but this episode really hits the nail on the head in that aspect. The Fire Next Time, I knew I could think of a Flash example, but even so, that episode doesn't really serve any larger importance to a seasonal arc since it was an interlude episode, as Eric Wallace so lovingly dubbed it. I really like the foreshadowing of what Moira does to Frank at the end of the episode with her saying, "There's nothing I wouldn't do to protect my children." It's a very simple use of that tool, but it has a very creepy undertone once you know what's coming. And I really like writing like that. Reminds me of Malcolm's speech in Dead to Rights in that way. I like how the episode does very subtle callbacks to what Thea said to Roy once it's Roy's head on the chopping block, how he says, "I'm just a waste." It's done in a clever way, like how Malcolm says he failed his city in Dead to Rights, calling back to and using Oliver's catchphrase in an interesting and fun way. I've given the season a lot of credit for its humor being very subtle and clever, but I think there are just a lot of examples of clever writing in general in this season, and this episode is filled with them. And I also think it's really clever that this is how Team Arrow figures out whatever the Undertaking is has to do with the Glades because of the subway tunnels. The one thing that might make you squint is how Felicity's tracking of Fox's train car was so sporadic that she sent Oliver to 2 separate locations, but I choose to assume that it's because those used to be subway stops, so they might be able to hook up to some Wi-Fi or something that would update Felicity's tracking. It is a weak explanation, but I think the rest of the episode is so good that it makes up for that. And that moment leads to some really great scenes between Oliver and Felicity anyway. It's not so much the plot says so as it is, that doesn't make 100% sense, but I'll allow it. I am also going to give characterization a 5. Where The Odyssey showed with no exception how well the characters could be written in the flashbacks, Salvation shows that quality can extend to the present day as well. This is definitely present-day Oliver's best episode since Legacies, and I really like how him being alone relates to how Falk feels after the death of his wife, and how Roy feels after he and Thea have their disagreement. And also how Laurel's mom Dinah feels, being that she's the only one searching for Sarah. I used to not really care about the scenes with the Lance family in the episode, but I can really appreciate them now because of how Dinah's guilt over Sarah's death relates to Quentin's guilt over Sarah and Thea's implied guilt over Roy. And while we don't get to know Joseph Falk all that well, we get to know enough about him that it actually hits you when he dies. He was killing people and doing bad things, that can't be denied, but he's also a victim of how bad it is in the Glades. He's motivated by the death of his wife in the same way Malcolm is, and it makes him a very sympathetic character. And I think that ties into the time we finally get to see the actor playing Falk in the third act. We start off seeing him as this faceless, voiceless, crazy person going to an extreme Oliver won't go to, and end actually feeling bad for the guy because he's a person just like everyone he's going after. I'm really glad that the episode portrayed him this way, so that he wasn't just another villain of the week. Falk definitely stands alongside Derek Reston and Ted Gaynor as one of the best one-off villains in the Arrowverse, in my opinion. Also, Malcolm's plan for the Glades is just a larger-scale version of what Falk's already doing, so that speaks to how well this one-off character was written, that the season's main villain has the same motivation and mindset. And one final note about the characters, Joseph Falk is a completely original character to the Arrowverse as far as I'm aware, so I think giving him a very common first name like Joseph, Joe for short, is a really subtly smart decision. Giving him a name you hear all the time, hell, the same first name as one of the main characters on The Flash for 8 seasons, gives him another layer of personability and relatability to the audience. And while the name thing may have been done by accident, it's still noteworthy nonetheless. Oh, and everything that happened with Felicity was great in this episode. This is absolutely her best episode so far. Visuals are also getting a 5. Not only are a lot of the shots in the episode cool, like when that train was going by Oliver, but there's a lot of purpose put into a lot of the shots this episode, too. You really feel the ferocity and emotion of actions like Oliver jumping from building to building, having to wait a second before jumping to the next one because he knows his own limits. Or the atmosphere of Falk's train car with how dingy it is, and the way his broadcasts are so amateurish and yet unsettling. Or when Moira's trying to clean the blood of her friend from her hands. This is probably one of the only times I've ever seen shaky cam used this subtly or effectively. Trust me, there are episodes with shaky cam that are very disorienting and can make it hard to pay attention to anything that's going on, but this is not one of those episodes. And I really like that the filmmakers chose to linger on the shots of Falk's death. He could have easily just been another body for Oliver to punch, but they made his death ceremonious, reinforcing that this is a person. It's never treated that way when Oliver's mowing down the Triad or Guy is hired by whatever villain of the week we get to see. Falk's death is treated as special because he's not some rich asshat that probably doesn't care. He's just a guy who lost his wife, and his heart's in the right place in spite of his actions. I really like that they didn't tune out Falk's broadcast when the team was trying to figure out his identity. You don't typically get that much care put into that kind of stuff. And this is also definitely Emily Bett Rickard's best performance as Felicity Smoke so far. I really like how her voice wavers during that scene with Oliver where she talks about never having watched someone die before. And while there is one fight in the episode that I didn't think was fantastic, with everything else being so great, you can forgive the one thing that's just okay. This is a great example of how low-budget episodes can still get a 5 in visuals. You don't need any big action scenes or great CGI, you just need filmmakers that know how to bring out the best in the product they're working with. Importance is a 5. This episode resolves basically all the subplots, and the ones that it doesn't resolve, it pushes them along to the next logical step. And it pushes the main plot forward by finally cluing Team Arrow in on how everything relates to the Glades, putting the season's back half into motion very nicely. And I think my entertainment score is pretty obvious based on how I've been gushing about the episode so far. That gives Salvation a score of 25 out of 25. I honestly didn't expect to give this one a perfect score, but after this viewing, I am absolutely sure that this episode deserves it. Now let's get into the wrap-up. Out of curiosity, I wanted to see if I could find out when Arrow was renewed for its second season to see if any of the things I noticed in Salvation were more than just Easter eggs. And I actually found the date this season was renewed. Arrow was renewed for its second season on February 11th, 2013, with the episode Salvation airing on March 27th of the same year. This means that any of the things I pointed out in the episode, like Oliver's reaction to Laurel saying that Sarah's gone, the expression Shadow gave Slade, or the Central City name drop, could have in fact been direct setup for what happens in Arrow's second season, and maybe even for the Flash's first season. I don't think the Arrow team knew at this point that the Flash was going to be getting his own show, but I do have a sneaking suspicion they had plans to introduce Barry Allen at some point in the second season if they got one. Of course, that's just my tinfoil hat theory, though. It could even explain away Oliver not knowing about Slade still being alive based on how Deadshot wasn't dead in Dead to Rights, because even though that episode was aired closer to the time of the Season 2 renewal, shows are often filmed in advance, and CW shows especially are filmed almost on a weekly basis in modern times. It's entirely possible that the writers didn't know about the revival until they were writing Salvation, and that's when they started seeding out hints toward next season's plot threads. Also, they reused this shot of Felicity during Salvation.
Crap. What? How is this possible? This can't happen. How is this possible? This can't happen. How is this possible? This can't happen. How is this possible? This can't happen.
I couldn't find a place to put it in my breakdown of the episode, and I only noticed it in editing, so I figured I'd just mention it here. But anyway, that is it for this episode, guys. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to leave a like and a comment. That'd be greatly appreciated. Also, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already so that you can join us as soon as friggin' possible. And while I'm plugging everything else, be sure to click the bell so that you get notified whenever we upload one of these crappy videos. But apart from that, I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys. This is Demigod Shmurda. Edge!